Symfonos 3 is the third in the Symfonos series. We're going to be working on enumeration and exploitation of this system with our goal to get root access and to capture the flag, similar to the others. Let's get started. So double-click the OVF file to import it. Going to name mine Symfonos 3. Click Import. Once Symfonos 3 is imported, click Start, and we will switch over to our Kali Linux box once that has booted up. In your Kali Linux VM, open up a terminal. Type in netdiscover-ieth1. We're going to find the IP address of Symfonos 3. Okay, we found the IP address. Now let's run an nmap scan. Now that that's done, we see here that we have FTP over port 21, SSH over port 22, and HTTP over port 80. So let's check out port 80 over a web browser real quick. I'm just going to minimize that. Double click the web browser here. IP address. Okay, we have some image file here. I'm just going to do Control U on my keyboard here so I can view the source of this HTML. So I just see this image here, and can you bust the underworld in a comment? So let's see if we can go to a web directory named underworld. No. Okay. Next step, let's try dir-b to brute force some web directories if we can. So just dir-b IP address. Just run the default settings first. Okay, I see something here, gate. So it's a directory. Let's go there. All right. Looks like we have another image. Let's view the HTML for that. Nothing to see here. All right, so let's see if underworld is under gate. Nope. All right, so let's go back to our terminal. And this time, let's clear that out. We're going to try dir-b again. And we're going to search gate underworld and see if we can find anything under that directory, if anything exists. All right, nothing there. Okay, so far we've been unsuccessful. Let's go back to the web browser. I'm going to try one more thing. So I remember in the first dir-b output, there was cgi-bin, and let's just see if underworld exists there. Okay, great. So we have found something. Looks like some sort of app that displays statistics here. So with knowledge that it's in the CGI bin directory, this leads me to believe that it may be vulnerable to shell shock, which is something I've seen plenty of during the course of my exploiting these CTF boxes. So let's check to see if it's indeed vulnerable. Just hop back to our terminal here. And I'm going to paste a quick curl command as going to attempt to access the etc password file. Show it to you right here. So we're just going to send this curl, and we're going to inject a payload, a shell shock exploit, right here into the user agent HTTP header. So we're going to try to execute this command, bin bash cat etc password. So all we're trying to do is read the etc password file, and it will work if it is vulnerable. Very good. So we have successfully exploited shell shock. So it is vulnerable, and we have a couple of users here, Hades and Cerberus. So we can remember that for future. And now that we know that it is vulnerable to shell shock, let's set up a netcat listener and get ourselves a reverse shell. First thing we're going to want to do is NCNLVP. We're going to specify a port of 4446. So we're just setting up a netcat listener real quick. And I'm just going to hit Control-Shift-T to open up a new tab. Now, this other curl command that I'm going to run here, show it to you. Same thing, we're injecting an exploit into, well, this time into the referrer header. And what we're going to do here is run some bash command here, which is going to try to acquire a reverse shell. So what you're going to want to do here is change the IP address to your Kali Linux VM host-only IP address. And here's the target, which is Symfonos 3. So I just ran that. Very good. Okay, so we've got a reverse shell. Let me see if it worked properly. Yes, it did. So I'm now logged on as Cerberus. Now let's use Python to get a TTY shell. All right. Let's check for any sudo permissions. Okay, so we cannot use the sudo command at all. Now let's use TCP dump to passively sniff traffic to see if there's anything interesting going over the wire. So I'm just going to use TCP dump -NNTTTT AI, and we're going to listen on the loopback address and see if there's anything interesting going back and forth on the network. Just sit here and wait for a little bit. After a little bit of waiting, we see that FTP traffic has initiated, and we have the plaintext user Hades and password right here. So let's just copy down those credentials, and we know that SSH is running on this target. So let's try to use this Hades and password to try to log into SSH. I'm just going to create a new tab here. So SSH Hades at IP address of Symfonos 3. Yes, when prompted. And we're just going to copy this password that we got from the network traffic. Paste it right there. Very good. Now we're in as Hades. We have a legitimate SSH session. Now I want to ship over PSPY32 to help us enumerate the system a bit and hopefully get some privilege escalation going. So what is PSPY? It's a tool that allows us to analyze processes, and it uncovers commands run by other users, cron jobs, etc. as they are executed. So I have it downloaded for you. Let's just hop over to this local Kali terminal, and it's right here in the root folder. There it is. It's not there by default. I downloaded it, and if you're not using the Kali Linux VM that I provided in this course, you're going to have to go download it. So anyway, I'm just going to run SCP, name of the file, Hades user, IP address of Symfonos 3, and we're just going to drop it in the home folder of the user Hades. And just going to grab that password again. It's not on my clipboard. All right, sent it over. Now back to the SSH session, and it should be right here. Yes, it is. All right, so let's just run that PSPY32 executable and see if we can get any interesting information out of it. So it's just going to scan and give us a nice output here. Okay, so after letting PSPY32 monitor for a bit, I see that there's a process running periodically. This opt FTP client, FTP client.py. So I want to go check that out. Let's just cancel this, Control C. And so I'm just going to cat that, see what's in it. All right, looks like a simple Python file here. Okay, that's how we got the username and password here, because it ran that over FTP. Plain text, we saw it right in the network traffic, so it periodically was sending that over the wire. Okay. So This is being activated periodically. Let me see what access we have to it. Oops. We're just going to run an ls command to see the permissions on this file. Okay. So it belongs to Hades, so we have write permissions to it. Let me see. So we can't run this FTP client.py file as root directly, but I'm betting that it's being run as root periodically. So what I want to do is modify this Python file to send a reverse shell back to Kali Linux. So I'm going to create a new netcat listener over here with a different port, NLVP 4447. Go back to the SSH session over here, and let's just modify this Python code here. Just going to hit DD, remove all these lines here. And what I'm going to do is paste in the one-liner from Pentest Monkey that we've been using for the reverse shells. It's formatted here in the correct syntax for this Python file. I'll show it to you right now. There it is. Pretty simple there. I'll just have the IP address of Kali Linux right there. You're going to have to change that to the correct one for you. So save that, and let's see how long it takes to get a reverse shell. Hopefully it's a root one. All right, so after a couple of minutes of waiting, I see right away that I have a root shell. There we go. So let's just go to the root directory. There's our flag there. So let's cat that flag. There we go. We have rooted Symfonos 3. Now let's move on to Symfonos 4.